This is a series of videos where I recap what happens in the Earth 4 Elements GL starring Apple and Mim that is currently playing on IQIYI. Spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't watched the show and read the book and wants to, because I'm going to be recapping episode 4 and I will be telling you all the differences that I've found between the book and the show. Basically, this chapter starts with Wassapol showing up at Sandrock Farm uninvited to talk to Din. Din's cousins are like, yo, do you want us to come with you? And Din's like, no, I got this. And Rose is like, do you want me to come with you? And Din's like, no, I'll deal with him alone. And when they finally get a moment to meet, Wassapol's like, oh, hey, Kasama, haven't seen you since Kassadit's funeral, huh? And Din's thinking to herself, this fucking man's mentioning the death of my father to make me emotionally disarmed for the conversation that we're about to have, because that was the most painful moment of my life. But Din in her head is also being like, no, I'm strong now, and I can face the Mahatanakorns head on because I'm not weak like before. Anyways, Wassapol's like, I think you know why I'm here. And Din's like, I wouldn't dare to assume why you're here, so why don't you just tell me? And Wassapol's like, I'm here to talk about Tipacorn's daughter, you know, the one that you forced to stay here against her will. Din's like, you must be mistaken because Rose is staying here on her own free will. There was no force involved at all. And Wassapol's like, but what you did wasn't right. Didn't you take advantage of the fact that Tipacorn is now in the hospital and severely injured? Anyways, it doesn't matter if she's agreed to it or not. What's more important is the agreement that our families made a long time ago. My father and Tipacorn's father arranged for Wasu and Tipapa to get married. And then Din is like, so why are you telling me this? Because remember, Din in the book is very good at looking extremely emotionless and nonchalant. And because Wassapol sees no emotional reaction out of Din, he's getting more irritated. And Wassapol's like, well, you know what? Your marriage to Tipacorn's daughter will never happen. If your family has any dignity left, you wouldn't dare go against an agreement made by the Mahatanakorn and the Amornjenda family, would you? And then Din is like, well, if the Watimwanit and the Amornjenda are like willing, how would that be shameful? Din goes on to say, you're talking about an old agreement that wasn't even put in writing. I could just as easily say that Uncle Tipacorn entrusted his daughter to me before the accident. And then Din's thinking, if Wassapol wants to pull like old verbal agreements, literally the one that Uncle Teep said to me way more recently would count much more than the one that he's talking about. Din's thinking, this isn't about dishonor at all. He just wants to get his way. And then Wassapol's like, all right, Kasama, let's be honest. If this were to go public, it would ruin your reputation. People are gonna say you're selfish, that no one ever taught you any better. Like, what would your parents think? Just because Kassadit and your mother are gone doesn't mean you should bring shame to the family name. And of course, anybody hearing somebody say that to them would probably be a bit stunned, because shame is really hard. And because we know that Din's character already feels so much shame for being weak and not being able to protect people well enough, and she has these insecurities, she hears this, and while she knows that a lot of it is bullshit, she can't help but be a little stunned. And then Wassapol goes on to be like, are you actually proud of being a shameless homewrecker? A person with no morals? And then Rose appears out of nowhere and is like, the only shameless and immoral person here isn't Din. And as much as Din wanted to come to this conversation with Wassapol alone, eventually Rose got past Lam and Phi and Nam to eventually make it to this private conversation. And I guess during this whole conversation, Rose was actually just nearby eavesdropping, but she couldn't hold back any longer once she heard Wassapol saying all this really horrible stuff to Din. And Din's like, Rose, what are you doing here? And Rose is like, sorry, Din, I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I just couldn't stand hearing somebody say such horrible things to you. I had to step in and defend you. I had to step in and defend the person that I want to marry. And Wassapol's like, what do you mean? And Rose is like, I mean that I can't marry Wasu, especially not because of some agreement that I've never even heard of. And even if I had known, I would never have accepted it. And Wasu's like, wait, so you actually want to marry Kasama? And Rose is like, yeah, please, pass the message on to Wasu. And if you're not opposed to it, consider this an invitation to the wedding. Wassapol's like, but you just got back, you hardly know her. And Rose is like, you know what? That might be true, but I do know her. Very well, actually. In fact, even though it's been such a short time. And at this, Rose steps towards Din, wraps her arms around her shoulders, and then puts her head on her shoulder. And then Rose explains that if this were any other moment, she would be flustered beyond belief, just like the photo shoot that they just had. But now, she was fucking furious. Because Din has been just the best protector, the best defender of her heart, her mind, and her soul. And someone just insulted her. And she wouldn't stand for it. She couldn't, even if she was weak, even if she's always been a burden, she wanted to protect Din in her own way. And so then Rose very boldly says, because I love Din and I'm going to marry her. And that's the end of chapter 5. Chapter 6 is called The Shimmering Bride. The show's version of this conversation is a lot nicer and kinder to Wasipul, and I think Rose takes a much more considerate approach, which is like, please, uncle, like, sorry, like, please, don't come between our love. I just really want to marry Din because I love her. Oh, like, come to our wedding, like, it'll be great. Whereas in the book, Rose is a lot more sassy. And also the way that Wasipul talks is a lot more cruel in the book. Anyways, after that bold declaration, Wasipul's like, fuck this, and he leaves. And when he does, all the cousins come back out and they're like, damn, Rose, way to go. In the book, Lama's like, oh my god, Rose, that was amazing. Like, you humiliated him. You clapped back like that. He was so stunned. Rose's internal narrative is like, I honestly didn't do very much. The only thing I just really wanted to do was protect the person who has always been so kind to me. She feels a little bad for speaking so disrespectfully to an elder, but then she also goes on to observe, like, but wait a second, this guy's son has been intimidating me and harassing me ever since I got back to Thailand, and now he's like here to say all this shitty stuff about the one person who has only been anything other than a gentlewoman to her? Fuck that. And then Lam is like, well, if you didn't step in, Rose, I don't know if Din would have been able to handle that. And then Rose is like, Din, are you okay? And Din's like, yeah, totally. Because she was like totally zoned out. And the reason why Din is spacing out is because her head is spinning due to the fact that Rose, while in front of Wasipul, got more physically close to her than they've ever been before, and she was so caught off guard that she's just dazed. Another instance of her gay panicking. And even though she eventually snaps out of it and Lam is like, way to go, cousin, like you sure showed him you didn't even cower at all or anything when Wasipul said all that shitty stuff, she still can't focus because she's overwhelmed by Rose's bold actions that happened earlier. In the book, she's like, the sudden closeness, the sweet affection, it had left her flustered. On top of that, Rose had just declared outright that she wanted to marry her. And this is a difference between the show and the book, which is in the show, Rose is like, hey, don't take any of that seriously. I just said it for him to get off our backs. In the book, Din makes this conclusion on her own in her head while she is getting flustered and thinking back on what Rose did. She's like, I know that Rose only said that to protect me, but that doesn't mean that I'm not feeling internal turmoil. And after they debrief a little, Lam is like, listen, you guys, I don't think Wasipul is going to let this go that easily. Plus, he's way more unpredictable than Wasu. So you guys have to be more careful than ever before. You have to promise me. And Din is like, I promise. And Rose is like, I promise too. And even though I'm weak and I can't protect myself and I always cause trouble for you, I promise that I'll try to protect you. I'm not going to let anyone hurt you. I promise. And while Din and Rose are like saying all these cute like promise to protect you situation thingies, Lam and Phi are just on the side being like, are you seeing this? And in the book they describe that this meaningful look that Lam is giving Phi is to be like, whoa, like as much as Lam orchestrated and was the mastermind behind this fake marriage situation, these two people seem to be playing these roles a little bit too well. The level of concern that they're showing and the promise of protecting each other, yeah, I don't know. This isn't part of the plan, you guys. You don't have to go that far. And while Rose is making this promise, of course, she's like clasping Din's hand and is like, I promise I'll protect you. And Din is like, oh my God, Rose is touching me. And she's like, literally like, eh. And because all this is happening, Phi is like watching. And remember, at this point, Phi is like really hostile towards Rose. But then as she's watching this, she's like, you know what? Fine, I'll accept it. And Din is like, what? And Phi's like, well, yeah, I'll accept your marriage to Rose. And Din's like, oh my God, thank you so much for finally understanding, Phi. And Phi is like, and I'll also accept Rose without any complaints from now on. And then Phi starts smiling at Rose, and Rose is like, this is very creepy. The morning after this scene, we have Rose preparing breakfast, and Phi comes out to the breakfast table, and she calls Rose Lady Rose in the book and boss in the show. I believe the Thai word that Phi uses is Lukpi, which means like the kid of your older sibling, but I believe it's also slang for like gang leader or boss, which is why that translation is the way that it is. And I wonder if Lady Rose is just like a different interpretation of that slang. Anyways, Rose is super confused why Phi is calling her that because Phi is literally older than her. And Phi's like, age doesn't matter to me. I just call people that when I think they're cool and I respect them. And Rose is like, okay. And then she's also thinking like, wow, is this what Din meant when she was like, Fi is a lot nicer, like when you get to know her. And now Fi is like smiling at her all friendly, and she's like, whoa, this is a huge 180 difference, and it's really weird. But she prefers this than hostility, so whatever. Then Lom comes out and she's like, Fi, are you bothering Rose? And Fi is like, no, I'm just saying hi to Lady Rose. Lom is like, listen, Rose, don't pay her any mind. She may look scary, but she's the most childish of us all. Which I think is to mean also that Fi is the youngest of the 4 cousins. And in the show, Lom actually says she's insane. And then Rose is like, oh, where's Din? And in the book, like, I guess Lom puts Fi in a headlock and they start, like, play wrestling. But in order to answer Rose's questions, they decide to stop wrestling. And they're like, oh, Din went out to, like, change her clothes. And obviously this doesn't happen in the show. But how fun would it have been to see Freen wrestle Namnan? Of course, in the show, this scene is a little different because they say in the show that Din has left to give Nam a ride back to her resort and that she's just getting back then. But in the book, Nam is still on the farm. In the book, Din is like, yeah, I just went to change my clothes. My suit didn't match your wedding dress, so I just wanted to get something that matched it better. And Rose is like, oh my god, Din, you didn't have to go through all that trouble. And Lam is like, oh my god, like, you'll get used to it. Din is like so meticulous and thoughtful. And Rose is thinking, I'm already kind of used to it. The fact that Din like organized this whole wedding and like thought through everything and it's like gonna be so beautiful. Like, it's just so sweet. It makes me feel so warm inside and my heart is like fluttering and like as if it were my real wedding day. And then she thinks to herself, I really don't regret marrying Din. And then Fi's like, okay, you guys, listen, like, we gotta get to this photo shoot ASAP because the sun is gonna get too hot later, so we gotta go now. And this is the same in the show. And of course, in the show, we have a scene where Din hears Fi call Rose boss, and she's like, WTF. But yeah, the same conversation ends up happening still. So of course, the next scene, we have the photo shoot. And like, in the book, Din is like extremely awkward and stiff because Din is clearly not very good at posing and stuff, or smiling, or just expressing herself in general and communicating. Of course, Apple plays Din a lot more of these things in the show, but she does this scene very well. Lam is like, okay, you guys like actually have to look like 2 people who look comfortable touching each other and want to marry each other, so why don't you guys just like... And then Fi is like, yeah, Din, put your arm around Rose's waist, okay? And Din's like, oh my god, that's like not appropriate. Like, I need to respect Rose's boundaries. And then Rose is like, it's fine, Din. I don't mind if it makes the photos look more naturalistic and realistic. Din's like, oh shit. And then all the cousins and Rose have to like work together to make Din smile because it's the one thing that she's really, really bad at. Lam is like, Din, smile. If you have that serious face, like no one's gonna believe that you want to marry her. And then Fi's like, oh my god, Lam, don't push Din so much. And Rose is like, hey, like Din, I would love to see you smile. I haven't even seen you smile since I got back. Not even once. So if this tells you anything about Din's character, is that she does not smile. And the way that Apple has played this character is nothing like that. I think Apple smiles a lot as Din's character. So just like for a brief moment, imagine if at this point you had seen every episode of The Earth and it wasn't until this photo shoot scene that we see Apple even crack a smile once. That's the kind of character that Din was supposed to be. Anyways, Din is like, listen, Rose, I'm not like you. Like, I'm not cheerful and bright. And if I try to smile, I think it's just gonna look awkward. I'm not used to it. And Rose is like, well, even if it looks silly, Din, can I please see it? Please, just once. You can even say cheese if it helps. And Din's like, okay, say cheese. And because this is a book-specific scene, this next scene is also just in the book, where Lam sees Din's awkward smile and just bursts into uncontrollable laughter. And even Fi is like holding the camera, shaking, like trying to like stifle her laughter because she's like, oh my god, Din looks so silly. But Rose, on the other hand, is looking at Din's silly, awkward smile, and her heart is fluttering. And in her mind, she says, oh, the smile that Din has on her face, it's making my world so much brighter. Then we cut to the wedding. And I believe in the show, Din mentions wanting like a small private wedding, but in the book, Nam, Lam, and Fi all suggest that they have a big wedding so that everyone can see their love. But when I was watching the show, I was like, the show version also seems like a pretty large scale wedding as well. Just like in the book, Vayo has undercover security planted all over the wedding in case anything bad should happen. And Din and Rose are walking through the venue holding hands, like acting like a married couple and greeting people and guests. And Rose is just remarking how amazing it was that all of Din's cousins were able to pull this together for them. In both the book and the show, they have a really cute conversation together where Din assures Rose that she will never be alone now that she is part of the Watinwani, and all of her cousins will treat her as family as well. She's like, the Amornjinda will never be alone because now they have the Watinwanit. And there's a slight line difference to what Rose says after this, which is like, even though this is a fake marriage, in the book, she's like, I feel very at peace. Whereas in the show, she says, I feel very safe. In the book specifically, this entire time, they're talking and they're holding hands and they're walking around the venue. Rose is describing how Din's hands are so rough and calloused and strong, unlike her delicate, unlabored hands. These hands make Rose feel very, very safe. And then she's like, oh wait, am I getting too invested in this fake marriage? Then of course, in both the book and the show, Wasu shows up and causes a ruckus. Both Rose and Din are like, oh my god, why are you here? And Wasu's like, oh my god, I'm here on behalf of my father. Remember, you invited him? In both the show and the book, Wasu is still kind of like hitting on Rose, being like, damn, you a sexy hot bride. And Rose is thinking in her head in the book, she's like, damn, I know I invited him, but I didn't expect them to actually show up. In the show, Wasu does call Din a loser and a bastard, but in the book, he is much worse. Basically, in the book, Wasu makes a bunch of like thinly veiled threats towards Din about killing her so that he can take Rose back. In the book, Wasu isn't afraid to say stuff like, what's the matter? I'm just here to congratulate you. Or are you afraid, Rose? Afraid you'll become a widow before the night's over if I decide to shoot Din for stealing my bride? He also says, I swear I'll take Rose back, even if I have to step over your dead body. Yeah, he doesn't say that in the show. But they do, in both the show and the book, take a really awkward group photo where he insults Fi in the process. And then after they take this photo, Din is like, oh, Rose, like, could you go over there because some minister is like looking at me or whatever? And then Rose goes away. And then Din and Wasu have a private bickering battle. And in the book, he says, you're a bastard for stealing my woman. I swear, Din, I'll make sure you die in agony. And Din's like, you can try to hurt me if you want, but you'll lose more than you gain. Rose has also never been yours, by the way. And guess what? From now on, she's my wife. So don't forget that. This makes Wasu about to like beat the shit out of Din, but then his lackeys are like, remember what your father said, Wasu? And then Wasu's like, you'll never die in peace. And I don't know why this isn't enough evidence for people to think that Wasu has like so much motive to like kill Din. Anyways, after the scene, he walks off and we get the scene where they go to the ceremony and they exchange the vows and the rings. It's like a beautiful setup. And I guess because both of their dads are like either passed away or in the hospital, they walk up together. And in the show, Nam is the one who's up there telling them to exchange the rings. But you should know in the book that Geo is actually officiating. In both versions, Din has changed the rings without telling Rose. And Rose is like, that's not the ring that I picked. And Din's like, I found one that's more suitable for you. And when Din says suitable, she means really massive fucking big diamond ring. And Rose is like, oh my god, you didn't have to do that. And Din is like, Rose, you are the most precious person in my life. And I want you to have the best of everything. In the book, we get Rose's internal thoughts, which is flustered. I am so flustered. Oh my god, is Din just as emotionally invested as me? Because why is she acting like this? But oh my gosh, this fake marriage is somehow making me feel like the luckiest girl in the world. And there's a really cute moment in the book where Modang from the audience is like, oh my god, Miss, I'm so jealous. I can see that massive diamond sparkling from here. And everybody laughs. And in the book, Rose is so overwhelmed that she's made this change and it's so unexpected that she like fumbles putting on Din's ring. And of course, in both the book and the show, we have like a kiss, 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 kiss from the audience. And in the book, because Geo is emceeing and officiating, she's like, come on, you guys, like, let's give the crowd what they want. Let's show them a little sweetness. And in the book, Din is thinking, God damn it, Cal, like, why are you putting me in this awkward situation? Oh, I'm gonna yell at her when I'm done with this. And in both versions, Rose is like, let's do a cheek-to-cheek kiss because that'll be okay, right? Right? And Din's like, And in the book, they discuss a bit more about how, like, Wasu's watching and it would be really good for them to do this so that it could prove to everybody that they're, like, a real couple. And Rose is like, I don't mind. And Din's thinking in the book, like, you might not mind, Rose, but I do. So, of course, when we do get the cheek-to-cheek kiss. In the show, the cheek-to-cheek kiss is much more like a almost kiss because they're pretty much like kissing right here. And in the show, Din then faints and everybody's like, oh my god, Din! And they're like clearly laughing. And honestly, I don't think anybody's acting at that point, not even Apple. But in the book, Din does not faint. The cheek-to-cheek kiss is just a kiss on the cheek. And while Rose is super flustered to have done this, she actually sees Din getting flustered too. And she's like, wait, but why did that look like it affected Din more than it did me even? So then in the next scene, because in the book Din does not faint, Rose is just in the bed admiring her massive diamond ring because Din had to go talk to a bunch of guests at the wedding. And she's like, Rose, why don't you go back to the room first? I need to go talk to a bunch of people and this is boring for you. So why don't you retire to the bedroom and like rest? And she's just like, oh my god, this ring is so big and that fake wedding was perfect. And oh my god, it was more unforgettable than I could have ever imagined. And in the show, we have Rose reflecting as well in bed, thinking about the almost kiss that she shared with Din and being so charmed that Din fainted. Then in both the book and the show, Din comes back into the room and is like, hey, I'm gonna go pack up a bag of overnight stuff so I can sleep in Phi's room because I don't want to disturb you and I want to give you your privacy. And Rose is like, oh my god, like, no, let me go sleep in my room. And Din's like, no, it's okay. Like, I don't want anybody to like be suspicious, so I'll go. In the show, they have this very cute moment where they're like sidling through the door frame at the same time and they're still in their wedding outfits and it's like very cute, intense, and romantic. In the book, Rose feels a lot more guilty about the fact that Din is willing to give up her room to Rose just for this reason, but she doesn't really know what to do about it. Anyways, it doesn't matter because the moment that she steps out, Aunt Jan is like, what the fuck are you doing? Get back in there. You're gonna ruin the bridal bed ceremony. And then I looked this up and apparently in some Thai royal traditions, it is customary for the people getting married to like stay in the room together all night the day after the wedding. And then I learned about this other Thai custom. You have like a bed bridal blessing ceremony where you get like an elderly couple that's very happy to like bless your bed that you then like sleep in with your newly married person. Anyways, and then we get some internal narrative from the book about Din thinking, oh my god, like ever since that kiss on my cheek at the wedding, my heart has been steadily unraveling all night. And sharing a room all night with my crush is not gonna help. In both versions, Din insists that she sleeps on the floor and Rose is like, oh my god, that's ridiculous. And Din's like, listen, it's not appropriate for us to share a bed. And Rose is like, oh my god, we literally just got married. And Rose is like, well, it's not appropriate for you to sleep on the floor after all you did today. And Din obviously can't refuse Rose. So they end up in bed together and Din is very, very nervous. And Rose is like, listen, if you're really uncomfortable, why don't we just stay up late talking all night to strengthen our bond? And in both versions, Din is like, staying up all night to strengthen our bond? Like, what do you mean by that? And Rose is like, obviously I meant like talking and getting to know each other. Why? What were you thinking? And Din's like, oh yeah, that's like what I was thinking too. But as soon as they start talking and Rose like puts her head on Din's lap, Rose passes the fuck out. And that's the end of chapter 6. Chapter 7 is called Happiness That Returns Once Again. In the book, Rose wakes up alone and she's like, oh my god, I'm so worried that I did something embarrassing like snore or drool or whatever, or talking in my sleep, which is more of the reason why Rose didn't want to share a room with Din yet, because she didn't want her to see that side of her. In the show, though, we get Rose waking up to a lovely card that Din leaves next to her, which says, good morning, Naka. And then Rose, like, goes to the sink, and she, like, sees that her toothbrush already has toothpaste on it. Like, good God, Din. Could you be any more genteel? In the book, we hear Rose's internal thoughts say, like, oh, you know, Din must be in her study doing work, or maybe she's already at her office doing work. But turns out she's cooking. She gets up and she sees Aunt Jan, and Aunt Jan's like, oh yeah, Din has been up since dawn because she went with me to the market because she insisted on preparing breakfast for you. And Rose in her head is like, oh my gosh, even though it's like first morning after getting married and I'm already losing to Din's unwavering thoughtfulness, and gosh, my heart is just wavering because of it. I have to tell you, this English translator really loved the word waver because they're always using it. My heart's unwavering, this is wavering, that is wavering. So if you hear me say waver a lot, that's why. And of course, in the show, we don't see any of these thoughts, but we do see Rose going up to Din and startling her because Din's like, hey, is Rose awake yet? And Rose is like, I'm awake. And she's like, oh shit, sorry. I wanted to surprise you by bringing you breakfast in bed. And Rose is like, oh, you can just go back to bed if you want to serve me in bed. And Din is like, oh, really? And Rose is like, nah, just kidding. In the book, this goes a little differently. She's like, oh man, I just wanted to surprise you with breakfast. And Rose is like, oh wow, like you getting up making me breakfast? People are gonna think you're so smitten with me. And Din's like, oh, I'm not acting. I just wanted to do something special for our first day together as a married couple. And Rose is in her head being like, wait, that's cheating. That's so unfair. Like, how am I supposed to keep my composure when you tell me something so cute and sweet like that? In the book, we also get Rose in her head being like, even though there's no way that Din can be as good of a cook as Aunt Jan, I'm gonna eat every single bite of this breakfast she makes me because I just love this gesture so much. And then she says this line that is in both the book and the show, which is whoever gets to be your real wife in the future is gonna be so lucky because you take such good care of people. And in the book, Rose then gets jealous imagining who that person might be. And one difference in the book that happens is that, remember how Din was like, oh, I wanted to bring you breakfast in bed, and Rose was like, yeah, let's do it, JK. In the book, she's like, oh, well, let me actually just get back in bed so you can serve me there. And then she goes back to bed so that Din can serve her breakfast in bed. So then this next scene when Llama and Phi show up and they're like, oh my god, I'm fucking starving, and they try to eat whatever's on the table, Din's like slapping their hands away, being like, no, 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 all of this is for Rose, none for you. And then Llama's like looking at Din being like, oh my god. And then she looks at Phi and she's like, I don't think Din can tell the difference between reality and fantasy anymore because, like, this is just a fake wedding. Why are they acting, like, so loved up? Then the next scene, we have the Mahatana Korans scheming. And this scheming goes a little differently in the book. So let me tell you what happens in the book. Basically, Wasapul is like, listen, Wasu, don't waste your time on that fucking bitch Rose. She isn't worth it, alright? She's gonna marry that bastard Din. And Wasu's like, actually, I don't even care about her. Listen, if she wasn't the heir to the Chomjam farms, you think that I would take a second look at her? I just want her land, okay? But if I did ever get my hands on her, I would just use her until I'm satisfied, and then I'd toss her away or pass her to someone else. And like, these guys are involved in human trafficking, so like, I don't even know what that's supposed to fucking mean, but it sounds really fucking terrible. And then Wasapul's like, well, what do you think we should do next? Because they're married now. And Wasu's like, listen, don't even worry about it, okay? They made a huge miscalculation. And Wasapul's like, what do you mean? And Wasu's like, okay, so they thought that they could solve this problem by like joining forces so that we can get their land, right? Actually, they're fucking idiots because now their lands are joined, which means that if anything happened to either one of them, we could get both of their lands. Wasapul's like, wow, son, that's really smart. And then Wasu's like, don't worry, Dad. We're just gonna let them have their joy and their happiness and strike when they least suspect it. If their marriage feels like heaven now, I can't wait to drag them to hell. In the show, they don't talk about any of that. All they talk about is whether or not Rose and Din are really married, and Wasu does seem to be truly into Rose in the show. So then Wasapul's like, okay, so we're gonna have to convince the town that their marriage isn't real and hope that the scandal and the shame will affect them. In the show, then Wasapul finds some way to spread a rumor that their marriage is purely for convenience, which then spreads very quickly, and suddenly the whole town is like talking about how their marriage is fake. Even the workers on Sandrock Farm are like, oh my gosh, like, what do you think, Claw? What do you think, Gale? And Gale's like, oh, I don't know. It's probably just a rumor. And then, of course, Modeng hears about this and is, like, really mad. And she's like, oh my god, miss, like, people think your marriage is fake. Like, what a ridiculous notion. And then everybody in the cousins are like, oh, fuck, like, we need to do something about this. So then, of course, Rose shows up to the Sandrock Farm and acts like a dutiful wife and, like, gives her a drink. And they act all lovey-dovey and they walk through the market holding hands. There's this whole scene where Rose, like, falls over and hurts herself. And then Din is able to piggyback her and everyone's like, oh my god, they clearly are in love. Wow, that was such a stupid rumor. It's a parallel to this childhood flashback scene where back when they were kids, Din wasn't strong enough to piggyback Rose, but now she is. And that is very nice that she has grown stronger to be able to protect her. And in the show, this is where Din tells Rose that, oh, Nam has planned for us to have a honeymoon because it'll look more realistic for us to have one. Especially now that the town is like a little bit skeptical of our marriage. And of course, in the book, because none of this rumor mill stuff happens, they just go on a honeymoon and there's none of this like in between stuff. And so because they're just going on a honeymoon, Modeng is helping Rose pad and Modeng is over the moon and she's like, oh my god, like my OTP is finally canon. All of my hard work is finally paid off, which is really funny because it's clear to us that Modeng is a shipper, just like the rest of us. Modeng then asks Rose to see her ring up close and she's like, damn, how much good karma did you have to accumulate in your last life to get someone like Din? Rose then flicks Modang on the forehead and is like, oh my god, focus, you need to help me pack for my honeymoon. And Modang is like, okay, fine. But there's a really funny scene in Only the Book where before they leave on their honeymoon, Modang's talking to Rose and she's like, oh, I saw Din drinking a lot of coffee this morning. Like, she must be so tired after last night, huh? And Rose is like, oh yeah. And Modang's like, are you really sleepy and tired? And Rose is like, yeah, I am pretty tired. I guess I don't even remember when I passed out last night. And Modang's like, oh my god, you guys passed out like that. Oh, Din is too diligent in every aspect. And Rose is like, oh my fucking god, Modang, shut the fuck up and just get her back so we can go to this fucking honeymoon. Honestly, I would have really loved to see this scene. Anyways, we finally get to the resort where they're gonna have their honeymoon, and Nam is there to welcome them, being like, I've prepared everything for you, so like don't worry about it. I've got it all covered. You guys have a lovely stay at your fake honeymoon. In the book, we learn more about Nam, who is the daughter of the second younger brother of Cassidy named Adesorn, who happens to own the Wathin Group's resorts. In the show, we see a sneaky conversation where Nam calls the other cousins and they're like, yeah, we set it up. They're gonna have a super romantic night. Then talks about how Nam's probably gonna marry her work, but she's like a genius. Like when they were all kids and they were running around playing, Nam was reading books. Nam has a super sharp memory, can recite all these numbers of pi. She has the highest IQ of all the cousins. And in the book, Rose then mentions, oh, she finds it hard to believe because Din was like top of her class when they were kids. And Din's like, wow, you can remember that? That was such a long time ago and you were so young. And then they just like chit chat, and then Rose is like, oh my god, Din, like you have to tell me last night, did I do anything embarrassing? Did I snore? Did I drool? Din's like, no, you slept really soundly and it was all very fine. Din asks Rose about studying abroad in America for a very long time. And then they just start chatting up a storm, like the way that they were supposed to before Rose passed out the night before. Eventually they go to take a shower because it's time to get ready for bed, and Din's like, oh, let me like hang up any clothes you want, just put them on the bed. And Rose is like, oh, I don't have anything to hide, you can just like go into my bag. So then Din like goes into her bag and she like pulls out a sexy bra and she's like, and then Rose is like, fuck, I forgot I have delicates. And so she snatches the bra out of Din's hand. It's like, oh, it's okay, actually. I'll just hang up my own clothes. And then Din's like, yeah, I mean, don't worry about it. Like, we're both women. But they're both obviously super embarrassed. And I guess this manifests in the show with Modang only packing sexy lingerie for Rose to wear during this honeymoon. So then Rose is only wearing like sexy lingerie when they go to sleep, and they're both really flustered when they go to bed. So then eventually they both go to sleep back to back because they're so flustered. And then Rose lies there awake for 1 hour just being so embarrassed by the whole situation. And when she turns around to look, Din is already asleep. And while she's watching Din sleep peacefully, Rose has this internal monologue where she's like so grateful for everything Din has done for her ever since she's returned to Thailand. And I guess at some point Din has like turned around to face Rose's back. So then Rose can like touch Din's cheek gently. And then she touches the place that she planted a kiss on during the wedding. And then she kisses her fingers and then puts it on the same spot on Din's cheek and then says, good night. And of course, in the show, none of this sentimental internal monologue stuff happens, but they do just have a cute cheese off at the end of the night, and that's the end of episode 4. Whew, there were a lot of variations in this one, but fundamentally, such good stuff. I have to say, this series has really grown on me. I was really skeptical on the first episode, but ever since episode 3, I have just been smitten as a little kitten. And then I watched a video where I found out that this is like Mim's like first acting project. And she's so lucky considering that she's like jumped into a GL supergroup where she can like hang out with the top GL stars at the time. I gradually am becoming more and more of an Apple stan the more I learn about her LGBTQ history in all forms of media. And yes, I'm talking about her thesis play called Stop Kiss, where Nam Tem plays like the main character who falls in love with the best friend. And then I later on discovered on her YouTube channel that she's done like a few song covers with Phi. Like, how much more queer could you get? Like, I am dying to know who she's flirted with or dated or crushed on within this GL industry. I mean, that fanfiction just writes itself. Anyways, this was a really long video. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I have not had any privacy to film any videos for the past week or so. I'm very excited to be leaving my family home to go back to my own home and be able to have privacy to do more of this content for you. As always, I'm gonna leave a link if you want to throw me any tips. That would be really helpful because these videos do take a very long time. But I'm so grateful for your patience, and I will see you guys very, very soon. I hope you guys have a good day.